From the 30th floor of her Banana Island penthouse, Adana gazed out of her floor-to-ceiling windows. Below, Lagos shimmered with restless life, headlights like stars, voices rising and falling like waves. But none of it reached her heart. She was wrapped in Italian silk, diamonds sparkling against her neck, a Rolex clinging to her wrist. Yet she felt bare, empty. At 27, she had everything people prayed for: beauty, fame, wealth. Still, she felt unseen. Her father, Chief Alisa Ease, had built an empire from oil and politics, but Adana had carved her own path. At 21, while most of her classmates thought only of exams and parties, she bought abandoned houses around Lagos, renovated them, and sold them for millions. Later, she launched a fintech app that gave microloans to traders who had no banks to turn to. The app spread like wildfire across Nigeria and beyond. By 25, she was a billionaire. But money could not buy what she wanted most. Men admired her, yes, senators, tech CEOs, even a Dubai prince. But none had ever asked her the simplest question: Adana, are you happy? That night, lying in a king-size bed large enough to host an orchestra, she cried silently. Her tears were her silk pillow. Her mansion was grand, but her heart was lonely. She sat before her mirror, staring at a face loved by the world but unknown to herself. Her voice trembled. I need to know if love still exists without money. If anyone can see me for who I am. Her fingers dialed her assistant. Clear my schedule for 2 weeks. Tell everyone I've gone on retreat. Don't tell my father. By dawn, the transformation was complete. The silk dress was gone. In its place, a torn skirt, a faded t-shirt, a scarf hiding her messy hair. From her safe, she carried only 5,000 Nigerian nairas. Enough for water, maybe a plate of rice. Adana Ease, billionaire, vanished. With no designer bags, no makeup, and no security detail, she slipped unnoticed into the streets of Lagos. The sun had barely risen when Adana entered Alaba International Market. The noise hit her like a storm. Traders shouted, buses honked, danfos screeched as they cut across narrow lanes. Dust rose with every step. Her expensive perfume had been washed away. Sweat clung to her scarf. Her slippers thinned with every step. Nobody bowed. Nobody whispered her name. She was invisible. She begged timidly at a fruit stall. Please, just a slice. I haven't eaten. The woman glared. Go away. You'll scare my customers. Her cheeks burned with shame. She tried again at a mechanic shed where men laughed over bowls of umla. I can sweep, wash, anything please. They roared with laughter. Carry your madness elsewhere, one barked. By afternoon, she was weak. Her 500 Nigerian nairas note and a sachet of water were all she had left. She sat under a kiosk, legs trembling. When the aroma of rice hit her nose, her stomach growled painfully. She begged a food seller, but the woman shoved her. Adana fell, her head striking the pavement. Laughter erupted. She day act drama. Someone mocked, tossing a coin at her. Her vision blurred. Heat and shame drowned her. Then a shadow. A rough but gentle hand lifted her. A voice, calm but firm, cut through the noise. Are you all right? Through watery eyes, she saw him. Colonel Balogun, a wheelbarrow pusher. His blue shirt was soaked with sweat, his hands rough from labor. He wasn't rich, but his eyes carried kindness. Without a word, he offered her the plate of rice he had bought for himself. Eat, he said. I'll be fine. Tears stung her eyes as she whispered. Why help me? Colonel gave a tired smile. Because someone should. On a worn bench near Mama Beezy's buka, they sat in silence as Adana ate. His shirt was torn, his slippers mismatched, yet Colonel's quiet dignity humbled her more than any billionaire she had known. The next day, she returned, dusty but hopeful. Colonel greeted her with beans and plantain. Thought you might be tired of rice, he joked. She laughed, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in months. In those simple meals shared on dusty streets, Adana felt richer than she ever had in marble dining rooms. That evening, after days of sharing food and quiet laughter, Colonel motioned for her to follow him. They walked through the narrow back streets of Ajagunal. Rusted zinc walls leaned tiredly. Smoke from firewood stung the air. Children played football with worn slippers. They stopped at a rustic gate. Cunnel pushed it open. Inside stood a one-room apartment with a dripping tap in the corner. "Daddy!" A small voice rang out. A girl, barefoot and beaded hair swinging, ran to him. Zara Baligan, 7 years old, threw her arms around his waist. Her smile was sunshine in the gray compound. Adana's chest tightened as the child looked up at her. "Daddy, is this my new mommy?" Cunnel sighed, lifting the girl. "Not yet, my love. She's our friend." Inside the tiny room, there was only one mattress, a broken fan, and a faded photo on the wall. Cunnel's eyes lingered on the picture. His voice broke. "Her name was Chioma, my wife. She left when I lost my job in the oil company. Took the car. Left me with Zara. Said she wasn't born to suffer." Adana's eyes watered. Silence wrapped the room, heavy and raw. She saw it then. Cunnel wasn't just a poor man. He was a man who had been abandoned, yet still chose kindness. By the end of the week, Adana had become a familiar face in Alaba International Market. She was no longer just another stranger wandering the crowded stalls. Now, she carried a mocking title whispered by passers-by, Cunnel's beggar wife. Whenever she walked beside him, traders laughed and pointed. "Look at him, the wheelbarrow man has taken a burden," one muttered. "Imagine poverty joining with poverty," another said, shaking his head with scorn. Adana's cheeks flushed with humiliation, but she pressed her lips together and kept walking. She had faced journalist questions, endured political pressure, and stood before powerful investors without flinching. Yet these everyday insults, sharp, casual, and cruel, pierced her deeper than any boardroom challenge ever had. One morning, as she walked with Cunnel, she overheard Mama Tio, the market's most notorious gossip, speaking in a low but cutting voice to another woman. "That girl is too polished. Her English is too refined. She pretends to belong here, but I can tell she's hiding something." The other woman nodded quickly. "I noticed it too. She carries herself differently. It's as if she doesn't truly belong to this life of struggle." Adana's steps faltered, but Cunnel walked on steadily, his shoulders squared, his wheelbarrow creaking against the uneven ground. He never acknowledged the whispers, never let his pride bend under the weight of their judgment. His silence was its own kind of strength. That evening, when they sat together on their usual bench, Adana broke the silence. "They laugh at me every day. Doesn't it hurt you?" Cunnel leaned forward, his rough hands resting on his knees. He gazed out at the market where traders shouted prices and customers bargained fiercely. Finally, he shook his head. "People will always talk. If you give power to every word, you'll bleed long before life has a chance to heal you." Adana looked at him, her heart caught between shame and admiration. Here was a man with nothing, yet his dignity was unshakable. His quiet resilience was worth more than all the titles she had collected. The gossip and ridicule cut her deeply, but every morning she returned. Because beyond the voices, beyond the insults, Cunnel was always waiting for her. One quiet evening, after another long day at the market, Adana surprised Cunnel with a request. "Let me cook for you and Zara," she said softly. Cunnel blinked in surprise. "Cook? For us?" "Yes," she insisted, smiling faintly. "I want to." At first, he protested. His kitchen was nothing more than a rusted gas stove in a cramped corner of their one-room home. He had no proper pots, no polished pans, no fine cutlery. But Adana's determination silenced his hesitation. She walked with him through the market, buying tomatoes, peppers, onions, and rice. Her fingers fumbled as she bargained with sellers, yet there was a spark in her eyes, a spark Cunnel hadn't seen in a long time. When they returned, she tied a worn scarf tightly around her head and began cooking. The fire smoked, the tomatoes splattered, and the water came late from the shared tap outside. Yet Adana pressed on, stirring with care, wiping her brow as the scent of fried plantain filled the room. Zara clapped her hands when she saw the plates being set on the floor. "Jollof rice and plantain," she squealed with joy. They sat cross-legged together, sharing the meal from simple plates. Zara giggled as grains of rice stuck to her fingers. Cunnel chuckled quietly, and Adana, for the first time in years, laughed freely. It was not the laughter of a woman posing for cameras. It was real, unpolished, and full. For that hour, there were no mocking voices, no harsh whispers, no weight of the world pressing down. Only three people sitting on a floor, sharing food, sharing warmth, and filling spaces in each other's lives that had long been empty. Adana looked at Cunnel as he gave her the larger portion of plantain without hesitation. In that moment, she understood something. Love was not always found in mansions or under chandeliers. Sometimes, it was hidden in small rooms with cracked walls, in laughter shared over a simple meal. Rain hammered the rooftops that night. Inside Cunnel's small room, Zara slept curled with her teddy bear. Adana sat on a stool, her heart pounding. "Tell me," she whispered, "what really happened with Chioma?" Cunnel's face darkened. His voice was low, heavy. He spoke of betrayal, how Chioma left the day he lost his job, how friends disappeared, how he carried loads in the market to feed Zara. "She told me she didn't marry a failure, took everything, left me with nothing but this girl." His voice cracked. "Since then, I live only for Zara. I don't trust love anymore." Tears rolled down Adana's face. She wanted to shout her truth, that she wasn't a beggar, but a billionaire, that she had come here searching for love stripped of wealth. But fear gripped her. Instead, she whispered, "Do you ever feel like the world doesn't know the real you? Like you're always wearing a mask?" Cunnel's eyes met hers. All the time. And in that silence, something deeper than words passed between them. The next morning, whispers turned into fire. At the edge of the market, an old Forbes magazine had been pasted on a wall. There she was, Adana Ease, billionaire, smiling in a white suit. Mama Teo gasped. This is her, Cunnel's so-called beggar wife. By evening, Cunnel stormed into his room. Adana was braiding Zara's doll's hair. He dropped the magazine page at her feet. Zara picked it up. "Daddy, this is Mommy." Cunnel's voice shook. "What's your real name?" Adana froze. Her lips trembled. "I wanted to tell you. I was going to." "You lied." Cunnel cut her off. "So all this, the cooking, the laughter, was it all an act?" "No," she cried. "I came here broken. I found something real with you. With Zara." But Cunnel turned away. "You should go." Zara clung to her. "Mommy, don't leave." Adana hugged her tight, tears soaking the child's hair. "I'll be back. I promise." And then she walked into the night, her heart shattering with every step. In her Banana Island mansion, Adana sat alone. The chandeliers sparkled above her, but she felt poorer than ever. Her phone would not stop ringing. Journalists, TV stations, social media managers. She ignored them all. None of it mattered. Her thoughts were only on Cunnel and Zara. She had lied, and now she had lost the only people who had seen her for who she was. With a deep breath, she whispered to herself, "I must go back." The next afternoon, the market was buzzing with gossip. Traders laughed, mocked, and whispered about her disguise. Some pitied Cunnel. Others called her a fraud. Then, at 4 o'clock, black SUVs rolled into the market. Engines rumbled, and people stopped what they were doing. Slowly, Adana stepped out. She wore a simple red gown. Her natural hair was tied in a bun. Her face bare, no makeup, no diamonds. The crowd gasped. This was the same woman who had once begged them for food. Adana walked straight to Mama Beezy's buka. The woman froze as Adana looked into her eyes. "You once chased me away when I was hungry," Adana said gently. She handed her a check. "Here is 2 million naira. Next time, be kind to the needy." Gasps spread through the market. Adana turned to the crowd. "I came here in disguise to see if kindness still exists when nothing can be gained." And only one person showed it. The crowd parted. At the far end stood Cunnel, holding Zara's hand. His face was hard to read, his eyes searching. Adana's voice trembled as she walked toward him. "I'm sorry. Sorry I lied. But what I felt with you and Zara was real. I didn't expect to find love here, but I did." Zara tugged her father's hand and whispered, "Daddy, she came back. Didn't I say she would?" The entire market grew silent, waiting. Adana's eyes filled with tears. "I don't ask for forgiveness today. Only a chance to prove my love is true." The market was silent. Everyone watched as Adana stood before Cunnel, her eyes filled with tears. Zara's small hand clung tightly to his. Adana's voice shook. I know I lied about who I am, but my feelings were never a lie. I found something real with you, and with Zara. Please give me a chance to show you. Cunnel looked at her for a long moment. His jaw was tight, his heart torn between anger and something softer. Then Zara tugged his hand again. Daddy, she came back. Didn't I tell you? Cunnel's eyes softened. He stepped closer, his voice steady but gentle. Adana, I don't care if you have 5 naira or 5 billion. What I saw in you was kindness. What I felt was real. He paused, glancing at Zara, then back at Adana. If you'll still have us, not out of guilt, not out of pity, but out of love, then let's go home together. The market erupted in cheers. Some clapped, some wept, some simply stared in shock. But Adana heard nothing except Cunnel's words. Her tears spilled as she whispered, Yes, I'll have you. Always. Zara squealed with joy and threw her arms around Adana's neck. For the first time in a long time, Adana felt whole. That evening, for the first time, Cunnel Balagan and his daughter Zara stepped into Banana Island. The tall gates opened, and the sight before them made Cunnel stop in his tracks. A mansion stretched wide with glass walls, glowing lights, and gardens that seemed endless. Security men stood at attention. Servants bowed politely. Zara's eyes lit up as she broke free from her father's hand, running into the garden, her laughter ringing in the night. Cunnel stood frozen. His rough palms twitched at his sides. For years he had pushed a wheelbarrow through muddy market roads, slept on a worn mattress beside a broken fan. Now he stood in a world he never dreamed he would touch. Adana turned to him, her eyes soft, her voice trembling. You once asked where I got money from. Now you know. This has been my life, but none of it matters without you. Cunnel's chest rose and fell slowly. His gaze moved from the mansion to Zara, who was chasing butterflies under the bright garden lights, laughing as though she had always belonged here. Finally, his eyes settled on Adana. I still can't believe this, he admitted, his voice low. To think I came from dust and ended up here with you. Adana smiled through tears. She reached for his hand. It doesn't matter where you came from. What matters is who you are. And Cunnel, who you are, saved me. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the night wrapping around them, the sounds of Zara's laughter echoing like music in the garden. For the first time in years, Cunnel felt something he thought he had lost forever, peace. The next morning, the mansion garden glowed in soft sunlight. Zara ran barefoot across the grass, chasing butterflies, her laughter filling the air. Cunnel stood nearby, dressed in a fresh white caftan given to him by the house staff. He had never worn anything so fine, yet he still held himself with the same quiet humility as before. Adana stepped out through the glass doors, her hair tied in a simple scarf, wearing a plain white dress. She carried a cup of tea in her hand. To Cunnel, she had never looked more beautiful, not as the billionaire the world admired, but as the woman who had once sat beside him on a wooden bench in Alaba Market. You're quiet, she said softly, handing him the cup. Cunnel gave a faint smile. I'm still trying to understand how I moved from pushing a wheelbarrow to this. Adana's lips curved gently. And I'm still trying to understand how I moved from being followed by cameras to being fulfilled by the laughter of a little girl. They stood together, watching Zara play. The silence between them was warm, not heavy. For the first time, neither of them felt alone. Then Cunnel turned. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled a small box from his pocket. Dropping to one knee, his voice was steady, but his eyes glistened. Adana, he began, you once said you wanted to know if anyone could love you without your money. I didn't fall in love with your wealth. I fell in love with the woman who shared food when she had none, who cared for my daughter, who made us laugh again. He opened the box, revealing a simple silver ring. I can't promise you riches or mansions, but I can promise you loyalty, peace, and love that doesn't fade when life gets hard. Will you marry me? Adana covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Then she dropped to her knees beside him. Yes, she whispered, her voice breaking. Yes, Cunnel. 1,000 times, yes. Zara squealed with joy, clapping her hands. You're getting married, she shouted, running to hug them both. 1 week later, the world was buzzing. Headlines screamed, Billionaire marries wheelbarrow pusher. Photos of Adana, Kunnel, and Zara spread across social media. Some mocked, some celebrated, but Adana didn't care. What mattered was this. For the first time in her life, she had found love that was real. 3 days later, a private jet lifted off from Lagos, carrying the three of them toward Dubai. Zara pressed her face to the window, her voice filled with awe. Mommy, are we in heaven? Adana laughed softly, pulling her close. Not yet, my love, but feels close. Kunnel took her hand, his voice low but certain. I was mocked for loving a beggar. Adana looked at him, smiling through her tears. And I was mocked for being too rich to find love. Their fingers intertwined. Together, they looked at Zara, asleep with her teddy bear between them. No words were needed. They had found what money could never buy: kindness, family, and true love.